Hello and welcome to episode 99. Yes, that's right, episode 99 of the Dragons Are Real podcast. Wow, 2 years they've done 99 episodes. This was supposed to be a temporary thing, but hey. Right, so where have I been? Well, over in the UK here, where I live, it's been half-term week, so the wife has been off, so yeah, we've been getting out and doing some stuff. So the old podcast has suffered a bit, but it's given me time to have a look back at what's happening with the old podcast. And I've been looking at the Kickstarter series I've been doing. As with all episodes, I script every episode, and obviously doing a Kickstarter episode, it takes a lot of scripting, and then doing the follow-up video for YouTube does take a lot of time. And I don't usually look at my numbers, but I thought I'll just see if the audience are enjoying these Kickstarter episodes. And it turns out it doesn't appear you are. I'm getting less than half the listens I do with a normal episode, and it's not pulling in any new listeners. The other thing is that while I've been doing the Kickstarter episodes, I've been not doing many reviews, and I do enjoy doing the reviews. So I've taken the decision I'm going to kick the Kickstarter series on the head. Although I don't do this for listens, if half my audience aren't interested in the Kickstarter episodes, then I'm not giving them what they want. And if I'm not doing the Kickstarter episodes, it means I can do more of the reviews, which I really enjoy, and also means that I can get back to doing some virtual tabletop videos on YouTube. I've got about half a dozen to a dozen of them stacked up ready to go. So any Kickstarter news now I'm going to include in this news section here. So yes, on to the news section. So, 2 Kickstarters that I've backed recently and I think are of interest is Knock Issue 2 is the first one. So this is an adventure gaming bric-a-brac. It's a compendium of old school RPG blogs for us OSR weirdos and D&D heads alike. And basically they get a collection of articles from around the web on OSR games, and they take the text, repackage them with an interesting layout, and add appropriate art and make it a really nice coffee table book to read. The first issue is still available in PDF, but the print version is out of print, and I'm told they are not going to do a reprint of that. The second issue is 224 pages in A5 format, full colour, printed on quality paper. And if it's anything to go by Knock Issue 1, it'll be full of old school adventure gaming flavour, thoughts about systems and substance, rules and procedures, random tables, lists, pages of maps, new classes, new monsters, and I think they're saying in Knock Issue 2 there's going to be 4 complete adventures. So that's Knock Issue 2 if you like OSR stuff, and you can get that either in print or in PDF. The next one I want to mention is Mazes. This is a return to the classic sword and sorcery dungeon crawler with simple modern rules. And it claims that Mazes is a fresh take on the classic dungeon RPG. Now this was previously released on Zine Quest 2 as a physical product of 4 books and has never been digitally released. So they've decided to do this Kickstarter to make it into one condensed book. They've added 25% new material and 25% of the old material has been updated. Now this uses the polymorph system, which was used in the Rebel Scum and the Very Good Dogs of Chernobyl, both of which I backed on Kickstarter, and I'm waiting for them to deliver. So in Mazes you pick a die, and it's the normal polyhedral dice of D4, D6, D8 or D10. You pick a class, answer a few questions, and you're ready to play. And like any old school game, Mazes is focused on creativity and rulings over rules. So the die you pick between a D4 and D10 is the die that represents your character, and whenever you need to roll any dice, only ever roll this one dice. And this dice determines the role within your group. So if you pick the D4, you're there to think and talk, resolve social and mental puzzles, and provide powerful spells and effects. The D6 is all about fast movement, physical reactions, providing action, agility and speed. The D8 dishes out the damage, and the D10 is the shield and tank. So you're thinking to yourself, well, how does a D4 to a D10 work if you're only rolling one die? Because the D10 is always going to roll higher. Well, this is what gets very clever, because the result of the die depends on what you want to do. So if you want to use anything for your smarts or intelligence, you need to roll a 2 or a 3 on the appropriate dice. So if you think about it, a d4 is going to succeed 50% of the time, while a d10 you're only getting a 20% chance. Anything to do with movement is called boots, and you need a 3 to 5 to succeed. For causing potential damage, use blades, and you need a score of a 4 to a 7 on those dice. Anything to do with strength and endurance is bones, which is a 5 to a 9. Also, whenever you roll a 1 on any of your dice, then that is a critical success. And if you roll the maximum roll on any dice, that is a 4 on a d4, a 6 on a d6, etc., then that is called a crown, and that is either a success or failure depending on the darkness level. So that is Mazes. That's currently on Kickstarter, and there's another one I backed, so check that one out. Let's get on to the main subject, which is the reason I'm making this podcast episode in the first place. So, Neon City Overdrive is written by Nathan Russell, who wrote the Freeform Universal RPG, and you can find more details at their website on perilplanet.com. It's $9.99 for a PDF, $14.99 for a softcover, and $21.99 for the hardcover. And there are also 3 supplements out for it, which I will discuss at the end. So I got the physical copy. It's 72 pages, digest size, and it's full colour print. The setting, it's cyberpunk, but it's a very loose setting. It's cyberpunk with neon lights. It's all grim and gritty. The inspirations for the setting should be films and television series like Altered Carbon, Blade Runner, Cyberpunk 2020, Judge Dredd, Ghost in a Shell, and RoboCop. So the setting is in the future, but cleverly is set no date. There are pocket states across the wasteland, and there's slick consumerism with invasive media absolutely everywhere. War rages between the megacorporations, the criminal syndicates, and trillionaires. In all of this, you play a cyberpunk, a desperate individual with skills, willing to put your life on the line for a little cash and some leverage. Cybertech exists, so there's cyberware, there's drones, and AI assistants. And you are fitted with a ghost chip which allows you to upload your consciousness. The grid is the information highway, gene modification is common, but throughout all of this, Nathan has kept it very generic, allowing the GM and players to forge their own setting within the cyberpunk genre. There are endless wastelands outside the cities, and the wealthy live orbiting the cities, and colonies exist on the Moon and Mars. So there's plenty for you to grow into there, with just enough flavour to get you up and running, but then make it your own. So let's talk about the dice mechanics. Neon City Overdrive uses a D6 pool, and you're going to roll 2 colours of dice to represent action and danger. And this is all player facing, that is, that GM makes no rolls whatsoever. The action dice are dice you earn for your traits, abilities, and anything in your favour. Danger dice are for obstacles against you or injuries. You roll both sets of dice as one pool, and the danger dice cancel out any action dice if they roll the exact number. So if you roll a 5 on any one danger dice, that will cancel 1 5 in your action dice, and so on. So you remove the matching dice, and then you look at the highest remaining dice rolled. A 6 is a success, a 4 to 5 is a success at a cost or partial success, and a 3 or less is a fail. As you can see, it takes some concepts from PBTA and Blades in the Dark with the dice pools. It also takes other concepts from PBTA with fictional positioning, that is, using your common sense. You play to find out, so the GM and players learn together, and it uses tags, which are short descriptions that add detail to the world. So they describe the world, they grant permission, they also make actions more or less likely to succeed, and they inspire the action. So let's take a look at character creation. For the first part of character creation, you think of a concept and visualize them. Then you choose 3 trademarks. These are free form and with plenty of examples in the book. You pick 4 triggers, which are your skills and abilities, and again there's more examples in the book. You write 2 flaws, you choose a drive and write your gear. So character creation is really quick. So let's have a look at trademarks. Trademarks are your professions, roles or background. Each trademark has a list of triggers in the book, which are your skills or abilities, and each trademark has a list of flaws. But you're not limited to the ones set out in the book. You can make them up to your heart's content, like you do in games like Fate. Let's give you an example of a trademark in the book. This one is a medic, and his triggers are patch you up, assess injuries, biology, well-stocked lab, calm under pressure, biometric analyzer, pharmaceuticals, research, bedside manner, steady hands. And his flaws are blunt, humanitarian, and merciless. You have edges, and think of these as specialities. They give a specific advantage or traits derived from your trademark. Your flaws are your drawback or trouble, and they earn you stunt dice, more of which later. And you have your drive. This is what motivates your character. Your drive track has 10 boxes you tick off as you progress your drive. And then you have your gear, and there are 2 types of gear, mundane and special. Mundane gear gives you permission, so if you have a bus pass, you can travel on the bus. If you have a local map, you can use it to navigate where you are. You just write down your mundane gear and you have it. It's inconsequential. Then we have special gear. Now special gear adds dice to your pool, and it has a number of tags. You can start with up to 4 special gear, and you choose as many tags as you want for that gear. However, to get the gear, you must roll a d6, and if it equals the number of tags or greater, you get it. The more tags you have, the more useful it is, but the trade-off is it's also harder to get. You can forfeit a number of special gear rolls by adding +1 to your dice. So instead of going for 4 special gear, you could go for 2 special gear, and on the first special gear, you add +2 to your dice roll if you want something really bad. Let's take a look at a piece of special gear and the sort of tags you can have. So it could be a ranged weapon, and it could be accurate, area of effect, armor piercing, burst fire, laser sight, long range, scatter shot, quick draw. You get the idea. There are some 6x6 tables to help you with your name and your style and your affections if you want some inspiration, or you can just do them off the top of your head. You start with 3 stunt points, and stunt points are like fate points or bennies, and I'll cover them a bit more in a bit. And you have a hit track with 3 health boxes. Let's have a look at playing the game. Basically, you are a crew, and you take jobs as that crew. You have an employer who requests you to do jobs, and before each job, you plan the job, and you try to acquire any new special gear, and you roll to acquire any new special gear that you want with the tags. So once you plan the job, you attempt to do the job, and if you complete it, you return back to your base, you rest, you recover, pursue your drives, advance, and improve. So let's have a look at individual turns of the game. Turns are clockwise around the table, a bit like ICRPG. All distance is abstract. We have close, near, which is arm's length, far, which is yelling distance or a short run, and distant, within sight, out of reach of weapons. And on your turn, you move near and can take an action. Okay, dice pools. So you start your dice pool with 1 action dice. You add further dice for each of your trademarks, edges, enemy tags, positions, scene tags, and gear that is appropriate to what you are trying to accomplish. You add danger dice for traumas suffered, any conditions you may possess, your bad positioning or advantage positioning for the enemy, scene tags, or not having the relevant gear. When you roll your dice, if you get a 6 and you roll multiple 6s, each additional 6 is a boon and adds details to the scene. If all dice are cancelled out, or the only dice left after cancelling are 1s, then it's considered a botch. There are also rules for extended checks which require 3 successes, so for example defusing a bomb or that sort of thing. They also have rules for helping, so anybody that's assisting you will make their roll, and each success and boon adds dice to your pool, but if they get partial successes, then that also adds consequences to the scene. Let's have a look at stun points. Stun points can be spent to do several things. You can use a second trademark, but can only ever use a maximum of 2. You can spend 1 to soak all hits. You can spend 1 to add detail to the scene. You can change an action die by 1 pip after the roll, but before any cancellation. And stunt points refresh to 3 at the start of each new job. And any time you want to earn more stunt points, you can do by using your floor and causing complications. Partial successes cause consequences. So what sort of consequences can you have? Well, it could be at a cost, so it could increase the time to be done, or it could be you've broken some gear. It could add a complication. It could add or remove tags to a scene that hinder or aid you. It can add new threats or increase existing threats, or can also be used to cause harm. So if you're shooting and you roll a consequence, then maybe you take some damage back as they're shooting back at you, because as I said, it's all player-facing rolls. Boons are multiple 6s rolled after any cancellation, and they increase in effect. You can set up an ally, giving them a bonus action dice, or you can spend them 1 per boon to cause extra harm, or you can use them to add tags, that is useful details to a scene. Botches are when all the dice are cancelled, or you've only got 1s left after the cancellation, and these allow GM to add to the pain of the scene. When it comes to harm, you have 3 boxes on your hit track, and every time you take harm, you fill in one of these 3 boxes. But when you can't complete a box, that is when you add trauma, and trauma adds danger dice to your rolls. Whenever you add a new trauma, first of all you roll a d6, and on a 1 you are dying. So that means you are unconscious and you will die in d6 turns and need stabilising. Anyone can try to stabilise you, but they add 1 danger dice per trauma that the injured person has, and you roll a 6, you are stabilised and you return to action. 4 to 5 you're stabilised but still unconscious, and or 3 or less you continue to die. And if you roll a botch, that's instant death. There's nothing more that can be done. Conditions. There are contemporary conditions for a scene, and there are also conditions that can be applied to character to add danger dice. Things like angry, dazed, exhausted. So they add more dice, and it can be action dice or danger dice depending on whether they aid you or they hinder you. There's rules for healing, where you regain 1 hit box for a safe rest for a few minutes where you grab your breath. And there's first aid roll, but again, whenever you're doing a first aid on someone, you're adding 1 danger dice per trauma they have. A success or partial success clears 1 box, and boons can clear more than 1 harm. When we get to combat, you have an initiative. You roll a d6, and on 1 to 3, the enemies go first, and on 4 to 6, the PCs go first, and the PCs act around the table. You can perform a move and a quick action, which are things like attack, first aid, grab gear, that sort of thing. A focused action is move far, a precise shot, or hack a device. When you do an attack, each partial success causes 1 hit. Boons add additional hits or conditions or consequences to your target. So for example, you could use a boon to disarm them. And any partial success is a consequence against you, and it may be harm for you or give you more danger dice for further rolls. When you are defending, you defend to roll in a similar fashion because it's all player-facing rolls. You can interface with the grid, and it's a bit like physical combat. You use different tags, and then you roll to see if you successfully interface with the grid. And there's a new set of conditions for system shock. When you get to downtime, you get 1 XP for each botch you rolled during the job, and you get another XP if you survive the job. And when it comes to advancement, you can spend this XP. If you spend 5 XP, you can get a new trademark, and you can only ever have a maximum of 5. You can get a new edge for any trademark. You can increase your hit value by 1 to a maximum of 4 hitboxes. You can increase your stun point max by 1, and that goes up to a maximum of 5. At a GM's discretion during advancement, you can change your trademark. You can add a trigger to a trademark. You can change or swap an edge, change a trauma description, or change a drive. And in the downtime, you also earn leverage, and leverage represents cash, reputation, information, and resources. Each PC will gain a D3 leverage after a job, and you spend these to seek medical treatment, work towards a drive, train. If you've been killed, you can reskin with your ghost chip. You can save as cash for future use, or use them for a +1 roll when acquiring special equipment for the next job. Your drive track has a number of ticks, and as you tick them off, you describe a short scene. If you can't fill a drive off or something happens, you put a cross in the drive track, and that means that you can never complete it fully, and these are misleads or wasted time. And then when the drive track is filled with either ticks or crosses or a mixture of both, you can make no further progress against this drive, and you should retire your character because the chance is you may get more crosses, and which makes your drive even worse. You can also recover it in your downtime, and you roll 1 dice per trauma, and a 4+ will recover that trauma. When you retire, you create a dice pool, and the way you do this, for each tick you add action dice, and for each cross you add a danger dice. And again, they cancel each other out, and if you roll your highest dice roll is a 6, you escape the life safely. If you roll 4 to 5, you retire but at a cost, and 3 or less you fail, and then you get to narrate what becomes of you and your family. And if you botch, then you fail and make it worse for everyone still left in the game. At the rear of the book, there's some good GM advice for running the city. Similar to PBTA games, it gives advice, so you want to bring the world to life as a GM, be a fan of the players, ask questions, do what the fiction demands, and you can also use the Powered by the Apocalypse clocks or a timer dice if you need to do that. So if you know anything about clocks from Powered by the Apocalypse games or Blades in the Dark, then there is a use for them here as well. There's also ideas in the GM section for threats. The threats act differently to the players because when their last hitbox is ticked, they are bloodied, and after that they are defeated. The next hit where they can't fill the box and they're defeated, they don't get traumas like normal characters. There are also minion rules, which are one-hit wonders, 1 hit and they're down. There are bosses where it takes an extended check to remove 1 hit for each of those, so they are 3 times more effective than their tick boxes. There's a big bad who can suffer a number of traumas equal to their hit boxes, but they do not have dying rolls. And then there's also a nice list of enemies, and the enemies have their hits, their drives, their tags, and their actions. So for example, a bounty hunter has 2 hits. The drive is to bring in the target. The tags are track, shoot to wound, grapple, cyber arms and brawl. And the actions are pin you down, plant a tracker, incapacitate you. And I like the way that they've done the threats because it gives a good way for the GM to roleplay these, and you can also design your own, but it gives you some inspiration. The GM section gives you information on how to create a job, and it's got some random tables to assist, which supplies groups of people, some locations. It gives the GM advice how to run the hook, plan the job, etc. And there's an example job at the back called the Block 13 job, where you are hired to capture a fugitive hacker. So that is Neon City Overdrive. But I also mentioned there's some expansions, and there are currently 3 expansions out for it. The first one is Skin Jobs. This provides material for both players and game masters to make a transhumanism and artificial bodies a great part of the game. It's got rules for reskinning and transferring sickness, new flaws, new traumas. It's got new trademarks for bioroids, androids, theroids, gene hacks, and new roles such as the Ghost Hunter, Robot Repairman, Skim Trader, and Transfer Technician. And it's got a table of adventure seeds, and a new job are also included. Then we have the Scions Supplements. This has got psychic powers, psionics, and untapped powers of the mind. This introduces psionic powers to your games. It gives advice and ideas to help you incorporate psionic powers and the characters who use them into your games, with rules for psionics, fear and loathing, psionic amplification, cyber disruption, and nexus zones. It has 7 psionic power types, including meta-healing, pyrokinesis, and telepathy. And each power it's got provides new triggers, flaws, and example psionic effects and trademarks. There are more than 50 new trademarks, representing a range of psionic powers and non-psionic backgrounds, roles, and gear. And the last one of the supplements is called the Grid. This explores and explains the pervasive electronic infrastructure of the neon-lit city, and it provides the GM with tools to take the games off the street and into the digitised wonderland of the sprawling data network. It gives an explanation of how the grid is used, including descriptions of the key infrastructure and technologies, such as the holographic overlay, the data hubs, the private networks and interface gear. It explains how you get around the grid, descriptions of key locations and dozens of story hooks. You can run the digital streets, hang out in the underwire, marvel at the mysterious beam, or ride the information superhighway. It's got new hazards, threats, locations, watch out for data storms and oubliettes, defy grid cops and gate guardians, and avoid the dreaded black ice. It's also got advice on using the grid in your games, with new specific grid conditions and traumas, and adds further guidance on the process of piggybacking the grid observers. And finally, it's got 25 new trademarks, advice on playing an artificial intelligence, and examples to help you arrange grid technology and programs as special gear. Those 3 supplements are really handy. They're not needed, but if you want to add a bit more to your Neon City Overdrive, then they've got them there ready for you to purchase. So my final thoughts on Neon City Overdrive. Well, I have to be honest, this is the cyberpunk game that I've always looked for, because I found games like Shadowrun to be far too complex. I backed Beta Red in Zine Quest, hoping that this would fill this niche, and while it's got some good points, again, it is a little bit too much. I prefer the lighter games, and this has taken his freeform universal system and really honed it down and improved on it. So it's a mix of Powered by the Apocalypse, Fate and Blades in the Dark, and it gels those 3 systems all very well together, giving a very cohesive game. It's a very narrative game, so if you like narrative games, this will be right up your street. If you like more crunchy games, then no, I'm sorry, this isn't for you. But for me, this really, I can see this being used for Judge Dredd games, for any of these sci-fi games. It can really is adaptable, and because it uses freeform trademarks, and you can basically add anything you want and take your source books from other games and use those for inspiration. I think it's very well thought out, very well presented, and for me it gets a big thumbs up. So that is Neon City Overdrive. If it's something that you fancy, then please do check it out. That's all for this episode. Once again, thanks you all for listening, and I catch you all on the flip side. You've been listening to the Dragons Are Real podcast. For more information, check out the website at pjones.neocities.org. The blog is dragonsarerealpodcast.tumblr.com. We are also on YouTube, Facebook and other platforms. If you want to get in touch, you can send me a voicemail via the Anchor app at anchor.fm/dragonsarereal, or you can send me an email at dragonsarerealpodcast@pm.me.